This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Today, Kate and I are going to be talking about all things ignoring, which we have a lot to say about. We talk about ignoring in the way that we let go of the things that we do as parents that create the behaviour that our child displays as opposed to them being naughty. We know that all behaviour is learnt, it's just communication, and that's what we're going to be discussing. And at the end, we'll finish with our 3 top tips on ignoring so that you've got ignoring as a strategy in your kite, totally dialed, and feel confident and competent putting it into place. Thanks for joining us for Being Real Parents with me, Anna, and my colleague and buddy,
Kate. We work in the parenting space.
And it's here where we'll talk about our worlds as parents, the good, the not so good, and the hilarious, and mix this with what we know about behaviour and psychology. So we had a quick chat beforehand, and normally here you'd hear about our weeks, but what we've decided is that today is quite a big topic, so we thought we'd just jump right in and talk about ignoring. I was just saying that whenever it comes to a podcast like this, rather than relying on my own skills and knowledge, I always Google. And what I noticed today when I Googled was, God, there is some shit out there on ignoring, isn't there? I mean, there's some shit out there on parenting, like, you know, but this one really bothered me, actually.
The joys of Google, right? Such a trusted place to find some information. Yeah. I definitely hear what you're saying, though. I did the same. Google ignoring misbehaviour. And what comes up when you Google that?
Yeah.
What did you find?
The one thing, well, there was lots of things that worried me, but there was this one that it says that when we ignore our children, we're showing them who's boss. And I'm like, what?
It's vital, isn't it? We must remain the boss at all times.
Yeah, I know, which, you know, and if we talked about that in terms of an adult-to-adult relationship, that's a power control, you know, and control wheel in a not healthy relationship,
for sure.
And so that really worried me. And, you know, and also we know that we're the greatest influences on our kids, and so how does that play out? If we're determined to show them who's boss, how does that play out in their friendships? You know, how does that play out, you know, in the school playground? How does that play out with their siblings? Yeah. And I was like,
that modelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, isn't it, like you talk about other relationships as an adult, how we've come across this parent-child relationship. It's so weird, isn't it? Like, why would we need to be the boss at all times? Like, what is that about? Like, it's so strange in all other relationships. So why is that okay?
I think we've been heavily influenced in terms of how we, you know, and I'm talking about here from a colonised perspective, you know, and because it's not true in all cultures, but in mine and what I've noticed from my upbringing is, you know, we came with a children should be seen, not heard. So there's an imbalance in how we think about kids and them being lesser than beings.
Yeah.
I used to have a boss when I worked at Skip, which is now Tākai, who used to talk about children in this way as human becomings because they're not human beings yet, which is just, mind-blowing. But it's the same stuff, isn't it? It's the same stuff that is why we would smack our children, you know, because they're lesser than beings. Yeah. And, you know, and it's got to stop. Yeah. It's just got to stop.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What else?
You found something in your Google
I'm
searching.
There's a lot on there. There is a lot, is what I noticed. And I don't know about you, but when I Google, I start scrolling of like, how accountable were these people? So my first thing when I Google is like, who said that? Who said that? Who said that? But yeah, it's
Or
similar.
maybe, who said that?
Yeah. And can I really take that with
Yeah.
should we quote this person? I think maybe not. But one thing that I saw within my Googling, but also something that I've noticed just working with parents and, you know, from our conversations as well, around that whole idea around ignoring behaviour is like letting a child away with it, which is actually quite the opposite to what you just said around being the boss.
Yeah, isn't it? But it's still it's demeaning to children, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's still that thing around, you know, they can't get away, you know, they're not allowed to get away with behaviour, or that actually they're not allowed. They're just behaving, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they're not coming at it with malice, or, you know, they're not manipulating things. They're just behaving in the way that they've been conditioned to behave, because actually we taught them that.
Yeah.
Oops.
I don't want to own that.
I don't want to own that either. We've come in hard, haven't we? We're just like, right, I'm sick of all this nonsense. Yes, but I it's just a deep passion.
You're listening to Being Real Parents with Kate and Anna on Plains FM 96.9. Okay, well, Anna, I feel like we came in quite hard on ignoring. Hey, maybe we'll just take a step back and maybe consider what we actually mean by ignoring certain behaviours.
Yeah, or how we get to the point where we think ignoring is a possible strategy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what happens is we give our child lollies, or their grandparents do.
Yeah, they do.
And then our child wants more lollies as they see them in every shop we walk into, And then we say no, and then they try things, you know, different means to get the lollies, and we buy the lollies, and then each time we do this for our kids, we're reinforcing that behaviour. So they attribute lollies to what happened before that. So if that was whinging or whining, then they then they think that in order to get lollies, I need to whinge and whine.
Oh, and it's so much easier to just give them the lollies sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But you can kind of see how this is actually our fault.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
And not their fault. And I always see ignoring as stopping what I'm doing that encourages the behaviour that they're doing.
Yep.
Yep. So it's actually on me.
Which is really, really hard.
Yeah, it is really, really hard.
Especially for those annoying behaviours. Like, you know, the whining, especially when you're out in public and your child is just at you about the lollies. It's really hard in that moment to just ignore. Yeah,
that's right. And so, but it's kind of like, I think that what we need to do when it comes to those, you know, like it happens at the shop, they start whining and whinging, we become embarrassed, we buy the lollies in order to just get out the door, we get back in the car, we're kind of furious. It's kind of like what we need to do is just take note of that and go, do you know what, that's something that I want to work on for me, yeah?
Yeah.
And the kind of, and you know, and when we're in a calm space again and not lecturing our children, saying things like, you know, I'm just referring them to my own experience here of, you know, when you behave like that.
What a line, eh?
I know. So when, you know, in a calm place, calm space, I go, okay, cool. So what's happened here is that my child is relying on whining because it's worked. It's been something that's worked for them. So what am I doing that's contributing to that? And so then basically if it's kind of like, okay, cool, so what I do is I buy the lollies. And so if we decide that we're not going to buy the lollies and we're going to ignore the behaviour as our strategy, that's a choice that we're making. But there's other strategies that we could also kind of decide to use too, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not our only option, especially if we know that, whining is particularly hard for us to ignore. Like if that is fingernails down the blackboard material, it might not be the best strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if we're particularly embarrassed by our children's behaviour in public places, it might not be the best strategy.
Yeah. I think that's really important, the way that you're talking about it like a strategy as well.
Yeah.
Because it is one thing in our kete.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
One thing that we could use.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And there's a few kind of things that we need to be aware of with ignoring anyway, because I think what I've noticed is that there's more ignoring than ever inadvertently through our phone usage.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot more ignoring even though we don't think we're doing ignoring.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I just go through this tick list in my head if I'm going to think about ignoring in a strategy. And the first is, what's my relationship like with my kids at the moment?
Yeah.
How much play are we getting together?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's getting in the way of that from happening, if that's an issue? Because if the answer is, what's my relationship with my kids? It's been quite tense. They've been particularly clingy. Whatever's going on, that's a sign, eh? Yeah. How much play am I getting at the moment? If the answer to that is not much, then I need to reflect on what's getting in the way of that, because we know that when we spend that, dedicated time to with our kids, we're more likely to get, positive interactions and behaviour.
Yeah. Comes back to that old attention.
Yeah.
The attention stuff, hey?
That's a really good point. And that would be another one, eh? Because we know that praise and play are positive attention.
Yeah.
Whining, us reacting to that negative attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
definitely.
Attention is attention, but we want to always be moving more in the circle of positive attention than negative.
Yeah. And that positive attention is so important if we are using ignore as a strategy, hey, because if we're not giving enough of that positive attention, then ignore's actually not really even going to work how we want it to work.
No, that's right.
So we need to be upping that positive attention as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Which we harp on about a lot, don't we?
Little bit.
Every opportunity.
But it's good to come back to, isn't it? I mean, that kind of like mental list is what I do myself as a parent. I go, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Why am I so het up about what just happened in the store? And then I just go through that little tick list in my mind, and I go, Yeah. And it's more recognition. It's not their fault,
Yeah.
Yeah. It all comes down to, that key thing of, relationship. What kind of relationship have I got with my children at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another important point around this is what we're ignoring as well. So ignoring the behaviour and not the child. And so when we're doing things like on our phone and, the world that we live in now, we're actually almost are more ignoring them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
As a person.
Yeah.
Oh, guilt. I don't want to say it out loud. But it's true, hey. And so I guess thinking about that as well when we're using that as a strategy, how are we going about that? How are we making that clear to them that we're ignoring the behaviour.
Yeah, that's
not
right.
them as a person.
Yeah. And is it about setting it up? Like, we're about to go into the supermarket now.
Yeah.
You know how a supermarket can be a tricky place at the end, blah, 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 and just kind of setting that up, if you choose to ask for lollies,
Yeah.
I'm going to say no today, yeah, and if that's going to be hard, we've got to figure out a way to make this work,
Yeah.
Sometimes when I've had those conversations with my little one, it's whistling. We're going to practice our whistling during
That doesn't sound annoying at all.
No. Or what, I don't know. But just setting it up so that they know what to expect, that they're not just going, because we know about ignoring. If I just, if she asks for lollies and then I choose to ignore whatever comes next, it's only going to amp up,
Oh my
isn't
gosh, it so is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, I thought this strategy worked. All I can see is more whining, actually louder. This isn't getting better.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? It's like,
does. What
is going on? This has always worked,
Yeah.
I know what. I'll just go louder. I'll go longer. I'll go,
Whatever I've
wilder,
gotta
She clearly is not hearing me.
Yeah. I really need to amp this up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that is the thing, isn't it? That's why we give the lollies.
I know. The amping up is just like, I can't take this anymore. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, okay, so actually I just need to amp it up to get the lollies. This makes sense now. The joys.
The joys. I know, because they're complex little beings, aren't they? So also I would go back to, is that a behaviour that you can ignore? Or is that going to be the kind of like, I tell you what, at the end of the supermarket shop, there's always lollies around. I'm really clear that today I'm not going to be buying you lollies, but I've got a sticker in the car, and if we manage to get through the supermarket and not buy lollies, you're going to have a sticker or whatever it is.
Yeah. It is that chat beforehand, though, eh?
Yeah.
That seems to really help.
Yeah.
Because, we've kind of laid out our expectations. Especially when we're really clear about it. When you've actually been, like, really prepped in it yourself and you haven't just, like, ran into the supermarket because life is busy and you haven't thought about it yourself.
And it's surprising what kids can, I've come to this, like, girding my loins, going, this is going to be the worst nightmare experience of my life. And actually, if I've prepped well, scaffolded that to work, positively, had a positive experience in the supermarket because of that, just done the little pre-warning as we go up to the aisle. Remember we says that we're going to get a sticker in the car. Let's see how this goes. Can't wait to give you a sticker. If I've managed all of that along the way, you just walk out so elated, don't you? If it's worked out. And then we have to be consistent.
Yeah. But also, they look pretty proud of themselves too. When you've, like, pre-planned, gone through the whole process, and then you're like, oh, I'm so proud of you for, like, being so amazing as we went through the supermarket and, being specific about what that looked like.
Yeah.
But they look pretty chuffed too.
Yeah. I know. It's like, because we know when we're behaving in strange or odd ways, don't we? There's certain circumstances that we just fall into that.
Yeah.
Mine is with my sister. She's always 7 and I'm 4 and know nothing. And she knows everything. That's kind of, you walk into a room and suddenly you're in these relationships and behaving the way that you have always behaved. And it's exactly the same, and it's just about kind of, deciding on a new way, creating a new habit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing is I'm always big on it's the relationship that's most important here.
Yeah.
And so if that, if whatever's going on in the grocery store, if you won't buy lollies, and we're just using that. I mean, there's lots of things, isn't there?
Yeah,
There's,
for sure.
We're
very focused on
We're very focused on this. If everyone listens to this, they're going to probably go, lollies. Head off and buy some. But we're conditioning. Don't bring ignoring to everything without real preparation around it, hey? Because that's when we move into, children screaming, becoming dysregulated, distress. That's not good for anyone, not good for parents because it really hurts us on the inside, and not good for the relationship, and certainly not good for the kid.
Yeah.
Like if we're introducing them to swimming, for example, we do with that in a really gentle way.
Yeah.
But we don't think about that when we're introducing our children to the supermarket.
Yeah. The good old supermarket. Okay, so for our 3 top tips today, tip number 1, have a bit of a checklist in your mind about what's going on here. So what are we doing that might be contributing to what's happening? So thinking about our relationship and how much positive attention our children are getting. So thinking praise and play and where that's at the moment. Tip number 2, thinking about preparation around using ignore as a potential strategy. So if we're thinking about our supermarket experience, thinking about how we're preparing our children before we go in there and what that's going to look like. And number 3, thinking about consistency. So consistency around potentially using ignore as a strategy and thinking about how we might do that. Maybe it's around distraction, thinking about our sticker, or for Anna, maybe thinking about our whistling with their child, and also keeping up the consistency around the potential reward or the praise at the end of the supermarket shop. So, all of that positive stuff, keeping that up as well. Awesome. Thanks for being with us today.
We hope you've learned that while parenting is challenging sometimes, that's totally normal. It's been fun having you with us. Keep being amazing.
Bye!